People, deluded, I'm back again. Obviously, I had my head looking a bit weird. It's looking like I got no arms and that. But tactics board, I must admit, I had no intentions of doing this vid. I was just here, humouring myself. And obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan. I think back to myself of many different scenarios this season. How we could have defended better. Could we have scored more on certain fronts? Is there any patterns that are letting us down and things like that? And oh, I'm tired, man. Nothing's new under the sun, but one thing that I find myself coming back to in all my examples or all scenarios played in my head, again, it's not to scale, but it's wide positions. I think we need to work twice as hard from wide areas and just holding shape in general. Now, clearly, they're professional footballers. They can hold shape. They've shown at times they can soak up pressure. But my belief is that when Arsenal do that, it's a handful of times, and we find ourselves praising them for doing such. And don't get me wrong, they deserve praise to a degree for that. But I'm also of the cerebral approach in that if you want to win anything or aspire to anything, that's the bare minimum. You should be able to do that for 38 games. You shouldn't be having to highlight and praise you for doing it for 5 games. You're professional footballers, members of the top six, so there's even more expectations. So there's two hands. One thing that I find myself and we have issues with is primarily in away games, but it's defending outnumbered. Now, again, admittedly, this was all off the cuff. I could have exaggerated more and actually made it outnumbered. Our defense isn't really outnumbered, but you can paint the scenario. Normally, when we're playing away teams, people, what do you see? You see a winger on either side issuing threats, and you see their fullbacks getting forward. And obviously, whether that's getting to the byline and whipping crosses in behind or early crosses on either side. These things present issues with us for the first reason in that I think we have to learn to love defending people, because I don't feel we relish it like we really love it as much as we like going forward. The crosses is one thing. At times we've not dealt with it in the air and there's been miscommunications. But away from the crosses, not even away from the crosses, another side to the crosses is the movement, people. Now, you've seen me just move the striker personally, people. That's the highlight point that I'm going to do. But first, let's just say this. Fullback has to go into this position to obviously stop the cross. You would want your wide men, and I've made it like this on purpose, people, because you've seen it, whether it's Aubameyang, Ozil and Mkhitaryan, who's both played on the flanks at a time, or Iwobi and Mkhitaryan or whatever. I don't feel we do it, but we don't cover our wide areas enough, our support men enough. More often than not, you find us quite narrow, and 2v1 situations happen in state of play for us. If you don't necessarily want to see that example, then if I just move this guy slightly back and make it with two strikers, Aubameyang and Lacazette, if you want Ozil, whoever, the point still stands. Obviously, Aubameyang and Lacazette, they press, they do a good job, but it's not just down to them. And at times I've seen them get tired, but it's down to the team. Back to the example now. If the fullbacks have gone to stop the cross, people, these lot have to help them as well, because to prevent 2v1s. But that's only half the job, people. You've got to shuffle across, yeah? You've got to shuffle across. And this is where I get at my defenders, my midfielders, because midfielders, someone should have the sensible enough to say, okay, I'm a midfielder, but my team's being pulled out of position here. Let me drop into defence quickly just to help hold shape. Do you see what I'm getting at, people? The same goes for another member of the midfield, and that can allow us just away games to just soak up pressure, people. Do you get it? Do you get it? Just soak up pressure. And then another thing, if the cross is coming in and there's a striker, and obviously if our centre halves aren't there because they're shuffling across, I expect one midfielder to be sensible enough and say, okay, this striker is running now. He might be a free man. Let's go back with him, sort of thing. Do you get it? Now, obviously, there's free man and marked, and again, it's not to scale. We'll be able to deal with the pressure. But for me, people, it all starts from wide areas. If I just remove the opposition for a sec, we just have to work 10 times hard, people, because I just don't feel we work hard enough. I think Arsenal's too easy to suss out in that. I've tried to make our defense as narrow for the example. Obviously, our defense isn't exactly going to be here, people, but you get the point. We've got to learn to soak up pressure. We've got to learn to relish defending. We've got to relish being able to frustrate teams, hold our shape, people. If there's a ball, get out there, shuffle across, fill in for your fellow man. Do you get it, people? Fill in, hold a shape. Wingers, fill in. Do you get it? Hold in shape, people. And again, not the best of examples, but if you look at the back four, then you got your wide men helping. Do you get it, people? This is what you've got to be able to. This is what you've got to be able to do if you want to establish something. Let's just keep it with 4-3-3 purely because I think it's easier to see. you've got to be able to hold a shape, people. You've got to be able to soak up pressure, to soak up my man there, to soak up my man there, to soak up my man there, to deal with the pressures of wide areas. You've got to be able to, we have to be able to deal with this, people, and clear our lines properly, and our midfield sit and help. And also, I always say it as well, as much as I'm saying the wingers need to come out and help and stop 2v2s and 3v2 situations, midfielders have to do more. That's why I need mobile midfielders, because I feel in wide areas they could support more, man. Because do you see what I'm saying? There's 3 players out there now. Do you get it? And then it's just a case of holding shape. Another debate is obviously midfield runners and even the strikers. I've seen at times someone will start from deep and one of our strikers will let them go. Someone needs to go, hang on, I know I'm a striker, but let me go back with him. Let me go back with him, and so there's no options for him and it's all in front of us, sort of thing, people. That's one thing I think we need to improve on, really and truly, if we're gonna get anywhere, people. Was going to make this a separate vid, but that's irrelevant now, and I finished that quicker than I was going to. Apologies for knocking that off. But I've also got some other additional comments in general, people. Give me 1 second. The notes are actually on my phone, and I thought, you know what, we might as well just speak about them now, really and truly. Why are we wasting time? Where is it? Now, I saw an article by James Bainge. I can't remember who he works for. I think Football London. I'm sweating, people. Bloody hell. Oh, apologies, people, man. I'm sweating. But I've seen an article from James Bainge. Allegedly, people within Arsenal are concerned with the slow turnaround with getting people out the door and, more importantly, bringing people in. And I'll take that with a pinch of salt because it is very early in the transfer market. We don't know what teams are doing. And obviously, if you remember Vinaya and Raul's comments, they said they've been seeing is believing and talking is just talking. But they said they've been on the case for months. They've been liaising with teams. Players want to play for us if there's Champions League or not. So you'd think there's a list of targets and people have been liaised and briefed. And I'd like to think there's Plan A targets, Plan B targets, and then Plan C targets, and many different contingency plans depending on the strategy in the summer. So I'd like to think that. But by the other hand of it, people, we know a lot of teams are moving away from the Ferguson and Wenger, one manager picks all the decisions. It's more of a delegation. And if you're really honest, in terms of actually, it's deep because it's his team, but in terms of probably bringing people in, Emre's, I wouldn't say his opinion matters the least because he needs players he can work with, but it's all about if Raul, Vinay, to a degree Caegio, and if a head of recruitment comes in, it will more or less be what they like more than Emre. Emre can suggest targets and give pointers, but he has to work with what he has. He's a head coach, really and truly, similar to Poch and things like that. That's the model they're in. So on one hand, you think a delegation is good, and I do believe that you get a group of men or women relatively respected in whatever field they have coming together to collaborate to get us the best deals in many different aspects. But by the flip side of that, could there be too many voices? For instance, again, I'm just speculating, but if you look at the transfer market in January, we was a bit slow to get things going. It looked like some members of the board wanted Perisic and Carrasco. Other people wanted Denis Suarez. You saw who came into the club. I'm not saying anybody's right or wrong. I'm just saying, is there conflicting reports, or can it be an issue when too many people have an opinion? And you need everyone to be a leader, but when there's too many leaders and no followers, things can't get done, really and truly. And to add to the matters, Edu, allegedly our head of recruitment, isn't in the position now. So how much work really and truly can you effectively do? For instance, if I just look at it, we're being linked with a lot of right backs, more so probably Munir of PSG. I can never say his name. Munier. We've been linked with Jan Bissaka. Let's just assume Emre wants a right back. Now, a manager should be able to get in who he wants, but there might be members behind the scenes that say, why would you spend the bulk of our thing on a fullback when we need a centre half and a left back? Now, allegedly the club all in agreement that we need a box to box, a winger, a left back, and a centre half. So we'll see. But you get it. We're being linked with right backs from Unai Emery's side. For instance, Raul Sanjay seems to be linked with a lot of centre halves, specifically Umtiti. It's not going to happen, but if he's linked with that, and you've got to remember, for argument's sake, the price that Umtiti would come with, if he deems it worthy to spend it all on that, but the others don't, what happens then, sort of thing, people? And then obviously you've got Francis, and you've previously had Mislintat, Demland there, or more on the scouting route, more on the finding gems and stuff like that. So then you've got different conflicting reports and things like that. And to sum it up, James Bain said, numerous sources who work with Arsenal describe it as antagonizingly slow process with too little communication. And maybe there is truth, because when it is Arsenal signings and stuff, even with Suarez, even with Carrasco, like, you know, they might sign, or there's a good chance they'll sign, but it drags and it drags and it drags, and it's almost like a soap opera, like Love Island or something. So we'll see how this one develops, and I just thought I'd offer my opinions. Of course, that is something of nothing, but people, let me get out of here. Deluded. Thank you very much for tuning in as usual. Thank you again, man. Please don't think it's ever overstated. Again, thank you for watching. I'm out.